The situation in Venezuela has bothered me enough that I wanted to talk to you directly. I wasn't planning on doing a video like this today, but after watching what's unfolded over the last few days, I couldn't just let this go by without addressing it.
Hello YouTubers, LocalPrepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, are Colombia, Mexico, and Cuba next? Well, my message is this. Get those things that you need now.
I'm afraid I'm not really sure who's running Venezuela right now. And that's kind of important for us to know.
Welcome back to Goshen Prepping, everybody. I'm super happy you're here. Of course, let's jump right into it. I'm sure you've heard the news, on the news, that Nicolas was taken captive by the United States, by our special forces, straight out of one of those things, right out of Hollywood, out of Venezuela. This is huge, by the way, but not necessarily the impact you think it's going to be, because they keep talking about drugs, and I'll tell you right now, this video is not about that, but it is about, very clearly about, why we need to prep, because this is just an indicator of what's coming.
Good morning, gang. Happy Saturday. Okay, if you haven't flipped through the news this morning, here we go again. Is this Iraq? Is this Syria? Is this Libya? I don't know. This time it's Venezuela.
Everybody, I told you this day was coming in the early morning hours this morning. Venezuela was under attack by the full forces of the United States of America's military. Donald Trump sent the Department of War directly into Venezuela. They conducted airstrikes. I want you to see some of this footage of what happened as it was playing out.
Everybody, welcome back to the channel. I don't even know how to say this. So I'm just going to tell you, okay? So I'm going to ask you to pay attention. If I sound a little upset, that's because I am, because I just see so much of this doom scrolling going along. And they're all these preparedness. They're all these people that, like, you're giving a platform. What I'm talking about is the regurgitation of the Venezuelan news story. Now, let me be as clear as possible here. I have actually hunted the FARC. If you don't know about the long-standing fight between the Peruvians and the Colombians, you should probably do your homework instead of regurgitating news points pretending to be preparedness channels. If you know who I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about, because you should have seen it during the intro. You really should have seen it during the intro. And I know that I'm going to come off like, you know, on my high horse and whatever. But what I'm really disgusted by is the total lack of preparedness, educational value that is being spewed to you through these larger channels. And it's not all of them. It's not all of them, okay? Because there are some out there. You still got Bear Independent who didn't like, bleh. You know, you still got, I think it's the Sensible Prepper. He had the opportunity. No. But you do have people out there that have anywhere from 1 million to 500,000 followers, they're prepper in name only. They're kind of like rhinos, is what they remind me of. It's like they're just preppers in name only, because you can go through the channels and see that it's just blah. That's all it is. You know, discussing news about Venezuela's, you know, long-running economic and societal crisis provides American preppers with a real-world case study on how a modern, once prosperous nation can descend into chaos, and that can be kind of intriguing, right? It's offering you practical insights into potential risks like hyperinflation, you know, supply shortages, infrastructure failure, and societal breakdown. But none of the YouTubers are talking about this. None of the YouTube preppers are talking about this. Instead, it's the regurgitation of news hiding behind the breaking news thumbnail. Like it's actually, like people, I don't know why you're falling for it. I thought you were smarter than this. Now, you know, Venezuela's collapse, you know, It's driven by factors including oil dependency, mismanagement, hyperinflation. I mean, they peaked at over 1,000,000% hyperinflation. Nobody talks about that, and there's a reason why. There were widespread blackouts, the food and medicine shortages, rising crime, and it kind of mirrors scenarios that many preppers anticipate in the U.S., such as economic downturns or even grid failures. But we all knew that. Remember back in 2019 when all the prep tubers, were talking about how Venezuela collapsed, while they licked their lips in anticipation for a real end of civilization fantasy, started to play out in the news. Like you're watching Venezuela fold, and this could happen here. I wasn't making videos about that. I was trying to talk about. I was trying to talk to a good friend of mine, try to talk him out of going there, because he was private security, and he was told that he was going to lead a team and to go to rescue people, behind, a situation that was so hot that he would not likely come back. In fact, he did get shot, but he did survive. And now he's dealing with those medical issues. But getting back on point, nothing in Venezuela will change the way that you prep. How you shop, how you work, the sports you watch, or how you treat your family. Nothing there is going to change that. I guess I only have really one simple question for you. When are you going to stop playing the game? We keep elevating these YouTubers that are simply regurgitating the news, and then they tell you to try to tell you why it's important that you listen to them. When it isn't, it flat out isn't. So here's why I'm asking this question. And if you know something isn't good for you, why are you doing it? There's a psychology behind this. And that psychology is like discussing, real world crises like Venezuela. It feeds into certain prepper fantasies about like a full-blown shtf scenario. But it's a double-edged sword. And more often, it's serving as a motivator for practical preparedness than pure wishful doomsday dreaming. It's basically it has a huge potential to fuse to fuel fantasies, and many preppers harbor subconscious excitement about collapse scenario. And these things, they stem from, we're all human beings, right? We all have a brain. We all know how they work. Hopefully you do. But these excitements, they stem from escapism, which isn't healthy. Media and cultural influence, which is definitely not healthy, and what they call subconscious wishful thinking. It's kind of like, I'm going to be ready when SHTF comes. Yeah, you're not. And watching Venezuela, watching prep tubers is what I'm calling them now. Talk about Venezuela and never have even been in that part of the world. Pretending they're geopolitical experts, even though they just literally just copied and pasted what was on CNN, and then trying to tell you how important it is. It's not healthy, and there should be a balance, a balance versus, a risk. And, I guess if discussions stay evidence-based, not dreaming shit up, okay? Things like survivor accounts from Venezuela, kind of emphasizing maybe regrets over lack of basics. We've read books like that, because they're grounded in prepping and they're grounded in reality. And they're also focused on motivation without delusion. But excessive immersion in collapsed content can heighten anxiety, intolerance of uncertainty, and even pessimistic thinking. So, healthy prepping avoids this obsession. It's about resilience for likely disruptions like storms or recessions. It's not rooted in societal breakdown. And I guess the bottom line, guys, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video, because the bottom line is, if you aren't consuming content that is positive and promotes preparedness without becoming fear porn, if you believe you're already doing this, you're on the right track. But if you're not,
The situation in Venezuela.
Are Colombia, Mexico, and Cuba next?
I'm afraid I'm not really sure who's running Venezuela right now.
Because they keep talking about drugs, and I'll tell you right now, this video is not about that, but it is about, very clearly about, why we need to prep.
Is this Iraq? Is this Syria? Is this Libya? I don't know. This time it's Venezuela.
Everybody, I told you this day was coming.